the people, including me, really want to know what is your story. In sense, from when I say story, means that your school time, your college time, your love for architecture. When did you start K2? So if you could just brief us about your journey, then it will be really nice.
Sure. Wow. Okay. I'm born in Delhi. I went to junior modern school, then senior modern school, and I got very lucky because I actually used to do a lot of horse riding. So actually, the first time I was put on a horse by my father, I think I was 3 years old, and I got quite good at it actually. And so I got lucky because there's a school in England called Millfield, and they happened to be scouting for Indian students to come and study in England. And I did this round of interviews and I got selected. And so I ended up spending actually I ended up going for a summer to England just to try it out. And I got lucky because they were very keen to have me stay on. And then, but I'm talking about 96, 97, and it's expensive to study abroad. And I got lucky because they offered a scholarship to me. So I ended up finishing my last 2 years of high school in England at Millfield, which was amazing years of my life, because actually there were 2 years of my life that in many ways made me, and more so because of the amazing headmaster I had in school. After that, I took a year out, and my parents will tell you I did quite a bit of masti, but the control.
You want to?
Yeah, but I also have younger people listening to this, so including my own kids, so I should control myself a little. But so I did a decent amount of masti, but I also ended up applying. So I had applied to England, and I deferred my admission into England universities, taking a gap year. And I'm a bit of a mad person. You know this because you're also my friend. I was going to go off to South Africa to work in a safari park at a zoo for 6 months. And that was my aim. I love animals. I love being around animals. I love taking care of animals. I think the unconditional love that animals give you, I'm not so sure most humans can give you. So unfortunately, that didn't happen for me, because that's also the year my mother ended up breaking her neck. So she was hospitalized for almost 3 months, actually. So the game changed a little bit for me, and I ended up applying to American universities, and then I ended up at Pratt Institute of Design in New York, which was again an amazing 5 years, because architecture, as you know, is 5 years. And New York was an education on its own. And yeah, so that's really, before I came back to India in 2005, that's basically how I spent my time.
So where is this love for architecture? When did it happen?
Again, I think my mother would tell you I could have gone through many professions. But I think at one time I wanted to become a professional horse rider. At another time I wanted to become an astronaut, believe it or not. And then I think I was 13 when I ended up going to Vijayanagar, to Hampi, with my mother, which is this amazing archaeological site. And it's actually when I started registering what architecture was, because of course I grew up we used to come back from school. My mother, as you know, is a designer, and her studio was on the terrace of our house. So she used to come down for lunch, and we used to have lunch, and I used to run up, and we used to sit upstairs, and I used to see people making the most beautiful handmade perspectives, and drawing by hand, because that was not a time where people were using computers. And so I started understanding what it was, but really, I think it was that trip that changed it for me, that I had another level of interest in it. And that's when I actually decided I wanted to become, or I wanted to at least pursue architecture, but I was very afraid because, so things happen, right? Because if I continued studying in Delhi, I could have never done science. I would not have managed. I would have flunked very badly and not probably got into any architecture school. But design technology, which enabled me then to apply to architecture schools abroad. So also a lot of luck.
So I think tell me something about your New York life, because that's like a dream of everyone, spending their the best time of their life in the most happening place in the world. And I heard you made you make some amazing cocktails too. So is this, because I know the story, but I want the audience to know something about New York life.
Well, so obviously I did 5 years of architecture school in at Pratt in New York. Listen, you can't avoid hard work. Architecture is in college is a lot of hard work. There are a lot of sleepless nights and it's a lot of hard work, but you got to compensate that, right? So then there's hard work and then there's a hard amount of partying, which has to balance itself out eventually. But the thing is, when I was in college, I worked 3 jobs ever since freshman year. Actually, freshman year, I worked 2 jobs. It was from sophomore year that I started doing 3 jobs. So you sleep very little. And one of the jobs I did is one of the summers, I called my parents up and I said, listen, I'm not coming back. And I'm a resident advisor in school. So my housing is going to be free. And I want to do this bartending course. So I broke the news to my mother to have her break it to my father, because he would have probably fallen off the chair, and saying, is this what I'm spending so much money for her to go abroad to become a bartender? But as you know, I have a mind of my own. So I stuck to my guns and I did my bartending course. And it was a lot of fun. I met amazing people. Because people who come to bartend in New York could be people who are trying to be on a Broadway show. They could be singers, musicians, trying to be actors, models. They come from all over, and then they bartend. So you meet some really, really interesting minds and some amazing people. So I'm very blessed because I had quite an amazing time in New York. And some part of it I ended up spending in Italy because I did a semester abroad, and then I also ended up going to England to work. So I think it's very important for everybody, and I tell people who intern with me all the time, the interns who come after leaving home to my office, that means they're not really from Delhi, are the guys who seem to be a lot more committed and a lot more hardworking and a lot more independent. So their thought process also ends up becoming, also becomes very independent, and which I think is very important.
Right. But nothing like you saw the movie Cocktails of Tom Cruise, something like that, or nothing like that. I wish.
A lot happened.
I knew.
So,
But with your experience, it might have happened. So that's why I'm asking. But it's fine. If you don't want to talk about it, okay.
No, listen, like I said, we've all got to let our hair down, and you're in a city like New York, and the amazing thing was a lot of my school friends ended up America at the same time. So one was in Boston, one was in Virginia, one was studying at Yale, and they'd all come down to New York. And funnily enough, they'll end up coming when I have exam time. And like I said, I used to work. So I used to have my own room because I used to work on campus. So my housing was paid for by school. So they used to all come in and stay with me. And hey, you got to make the best of wherever you are.
Destiny. But I'm so blessed that, it's like I could listen to all this that you have experienced, because, I can feel that there must be a lot of energy at that time and you're very happy. And it brings a clear glow on your face when we talk about that New York life. But we should do this.
The glow that you're talking about and Iram's talking about is all the face masks that one has been using during the lockdown. So.
But we don't have it right now. So I think the face mask, it's better to, you can go without face mask. I don't think it's required. KK, what we should do is we should have this, if you remember your drinks, we should try to get your friends and we should have this cocktail session and remember those times and see though, your bartending skills, if you are okay.
No, no, listen, I make drinks for my friends all the time, and you know quite a few of
Yeah.
them. So there's absolutely no thing where, I end up becoming designated bartender. And then I also end up becoming designated driver, or, designated non-drunk personnel for the night. So that's the sad
Oh,
part, uh, but absolutely.
so that's something to look forward after the lockdown for sure. So tell me, Kolika, where did you start K2? In sense, what's the story behind K2 India? In sense, I know you were in New York coming to New Delhi, and when K2.
So, so as a lot of you know, my mother's a designer and a restorer, and she still runs, actually. I can't say ran. She runs a company called Singh Interior Designs, and I studied architecture and carpentry. So, I get a lot of this, and a lot of my good friends in the fraternity know where I'm coming from. I get a lot of this when they say, oh, well, your mother has a leg, so it must have been so easy for you to get into this profession. Uh, but, everything has its positives and its negatives. The positive is, for me, that I had an amazing mentor. And that is someone who, till date, corrects me when I go wrong, and till date is very supportive of my decisions without being overpowering. So, which is very rare. So, it works
Very sweet
beautifully.
also.
Uh,
Yeah.
Sorry?
I said it's very sweet because if she's not interfering, and I think she's been your mentor, I think that's I think
Yeah, so I mean,
that's a blessing.
I've been very lucky in
Yeah.
that sense. But because I moved back and I wanted to set myself up as an architect, there was a difficulty because she had such a big name as a designer, and
Of course.
um, and so for 5 years actually, I set up my own firm, and I didn't tell anybody I was her daughter, and I picked up every job I could potentially get. It could be a 200 square foot room. It could be building a factory. I've done a lot of stuff which doesn't show up anywhere in my profile, but everything's a learning experience. And I did that all the way to 2010. So that was about 5 years I did that. And in 2000, roughly around 2000, end of 2009, beginning of 2010, um, I started getting confidence in myself that, okay, if I join my mother, am I going to bring any value to her name or any value to her, or am I valuable even to myself? And once I got that confidence, I broached this idea and I threw it at her, actually. I can't even say broached it. And I said, listen, I want to set up K2 India and I would like you to come on board. And she was like, what? Like, why would you not just join my firm? And I was like, no, because this has to be more about me than about you. So I'd like you to, come on board. And then we set up K2 India, which is like the umbrella company which does architecture work, design work, and as you know, carpentry is, in fact, my
Yeah.
first love. So, and furniture manufacturing. So yeah,
Excellent.
we're going to be,
But
it's 10, it's going to be
tell
10 years this October that we would have set up K2 India.
wow, congratulations for 10th year. Although
Well, we don't know.
although I
We
don't
don't know
consider,
where we'll be. We don't know where we'll be in October this year. But yes, thank you.
but the point is that everybody has suggested not to consider this year. So technically, it's 9 years only right now. So
Celebrate
probably
it
we
next
celebrate
year.
next year. Yes, that's the only way of survival in this time. But note this is something I personally why I'm asking this question is that most of the people in architecture at times they have to join their family business like architecture father is there or mother is there they're joining it. Did you find any pressure on joining this legacy? Because for the people who don't know in this chat about your mother, I just going to brief them. Awarded Padma Shri. She's a living design legend. She's been doing restoration projects for Rashtrapati Bhavan, PM House. It's a huge list. I was doing quite kind of a rake before I could go on a chat, and the list was not ending. Oberoi Hotels, Bhutan work. So you know that, that's a great legacy she's carrying, and I have the honor of working with her personally. So I know that her design skills it's amazing. You can't match with her. But when I say doesn't mean that you is generally the perception of the public. But was there a pressure to join this legacy?
No, actually, I can't remember my mother ever saying, even once to me, that you should become a designer or an architect. So I have to say no. Both my parents actually, in their own way, because my mother was very studious, okay, and my father's very sporty. So we got this very balanced upbringing where we were shoved into individual sports, team sports. Yet we were made to read a lot. We traveled a lot. We read poetry. We did debating. So um, I think the one thing that the most important thing I think my parents taught us is to live with passion. If you're passionate about it, you'll find a way to get good at it.
Right.
And that's actually something that I followed even when, um, because I was a swimmer and then a rider, and then I mean I did all sorts of crazy things when I was younger, and I truly believe if you're passionate and you work hard, and I have to say a little bit of kismat, you can kind of get there. So really, no, I had no push to join. I know a lot of kids these days, because a lot of architects have built, with a lot of hard work, they built beautiful architecture empires in their own way, and I know a lot of their kids get pushed in that direction. But no, and I follow the same practice. I think people and children should be allowed to do what they're passionate about.
That's great. I really wanted to hear this for the audience because it's important for the audience also, or somebody who's doing their new job, you know, just want to do there. So tell me, this is a very important discussion which we have already done before, also, but wanted to put it on the platform. How difficult is to be a woman entrepreneur? Do you think there's some bias or challenge? Like you shared with me that the landlord doesn't want, he didn't want to meet you in sense, because he says that you are a woman. I'm just discussing that. I think there are challenges, or you have faced challenges, or not really.
No, no. I mean, being a woman entrepreneur and then being a woman architect uh, is bias. There's a lot of bias, and it is very challenging. I mean, how many of you would have heard of, say, Marion Griffin, right? She was one of the first licensed women architects, and she worked very closely with Frank Lloyd Wright. But we've all heard of Frank Lloyd Wright. Even non-architects have heard of Frank Lloyd Wright. How many people have heard of Praveena Mehta? She was one of the women who worked and was involved in the planning of New Bombay, but you've never heard of her. Zaha
Yeah.
Hadid came on the scene, what, 10 years ago? Nobody had heard of her until then. Even people like, so one of my favorite architects, Hariri and Hariri, they are two women architects, they're sisters, and they practice out of New York, and I love their work. I'm not even sure you would have heard of them, right? Where you'd hear of a lot of male architects. In our own country, you've seen people like Brinda Sumaya, right? Who worked diligently and for a long time. Even if you talk about my own mother, she was one of the first people in this industry of design. These women have actually helped us shape the way, and taken a lot of our obstacles out of the way for us younger generations who've come on this. And we do it for the younger generation that is to follow. But who are we kidding, CJ? You run a company. We've talked about these things earlier as well. It's a very different conversation, even for a woman architect, when she has a male partner versus a woman architect who's practicing on her own. Meetings which are late in the evening, you don't know what to expect. I mean, I'm being really, I'm known to be very honest. So, you have
Yeah.
to
Quite.
plan yourselves. But I have to say, I think women entrepreneurs have a great advantage, because I think women in general have a great advantage over men, because we are capable of multitasking beautifully. And men, on the other
Yes.
hand, are not quite efficient at it.
I,
So it's a give and take. I don't think one gender can
I'm,
really feel.
but I completely agree with you, and I have a lot of respect for you for that. I know you are single-handedly doing a lot of multitasking work, and I think I'm on a public platform. I'm really, really proud of you. I can say that.
Thank you. That's
Holika,
very sweet of you.
that, you that's so honest. Your dedication, because I have personally worked with you. Your dedication and your involvement in project quite. uh, if you take a project, then there is no looking. I know you are very clear what you want and what you do. So, what's your story? You know, this is something which you have developed, or you know, if you could just tell us a bit about it.
See, CJ, I think it's it's there's so many aspects to what one does, and there are so many aspects even in architecture that it becomes it becomes rather sorry, as you can hear, my dogs are
Fine.
barking in the background. So um, uh, I take on only that many projects. So that's, I think, the key. I haven't quite got to that stage where one has expanded that much that one can't give one's own attention into each project. And for me, help it huge in
No,
your
no doubt, it's
showroom.
beautiful. We loved it,
Uh,
and not me, the public loved it. So
Okay, your voice is still cracking, but I believe I can be heard. So I'll repeat
yeah,
what you said. So when we decided to do your store, I took a little bit of time because you were selling multiple products, and you were also at a point where you were thinking of growing, that you may
yes,
venture out into other things to do. You're absolutely right. Even when I design a house and I'm doing at the architectural stage, I myself have to visualize the end.
yeah,
Um, and for me, how you use, and maybe this has to do with this duality, and maybe it also has to do with the fact that although I'm trained as an architect, I grew up with a designer, and I've grown up in a design studio. So interior design, even though I didn't study it, and it's a whole separate degree and subject and all that. I managed to, it's very important for me how somebody uses that space internally. And
right,
therefore, I always think it through till the end of what is the user experience going to be of this space, even though it may be more beneficial for me generally just look at the exterior. But for me, it really comes in because I believe, and as you know, I do all sorts of things, but recently I seem to be getting more work towards residential work. So when we did your store, I needed to first crack you
yes.
because I needed to be sure what
Thank
you
you.
wanted. Because as you know, you were also figuring it out as a client on
Yes,
where you wanted to go with this. And with any amazing result, um, there is a little bit of friction between the designer, architect, and the client, because you had a lot of ideas, and as you know, some of those ideas I kind of have to shut down and say, okay, hang on,
yes,
we first have to get through this process, and then we can entertain those. And we did, as you
right.
remember, we took in a lot of things that you wanted, and you couldn't visualize that they were going to come out, but they did at the end. But I always kept telling you, trust me, it's all planned in. It's here. This is how it's going to work. And actually, you're a great client to have
Yo,
because you trusted me.
yeah, but on a public platform, I just want to share uh, before I go to the next question. I'm trying to be a bit selfish here. That I want to thank you for doing that project for me because it has been a game changer for us. There is no doubt about it. And most of the contribution towards that game changing is because you guided us to a store for the need of the hour. Because people, the concept of the stores are changing now. They have and people want good looking stores. So thank you once again for doing this. And
Welcome, welcome. And
okay,
thank you for
so
picking me because you have a lot of great architect friends. So thank you for picking me.
no, no, please don't be so modest and humble. You are a rock star, so it was great to have you. And thanks once again. So now a point which is a concern to all of us, Kohelika, which we need to take your. What's your take on luxury homes after this pandemic, which you feel uh, is going to take some time to get over? What's your take on?
CJ, honestly, I think a lot of my clients, and I say this with a lot of humility, are very privileged. And the sort of issues we are going to face, is very different to the issues that a majority of the large majority of our population is going to face. I think developers is a completely different ballgame, and as you know, because you do a lot of work for them, they're going to be hit. They're already hit very badly. In terms of luxury homes, I think I have to say, I think most people who decide to make large homes, and that also for themselves, because most of my clients I'm in touch with directly, right? So it's a one-on-one relationship. Plan it. So I know I'm hopeful, and these are just my thoughts, that the projects that are ongoing, of course, I think a client will think twice if they're about spending the same quantum of money or looking at something. But I think they are still in the safe zone. You know, they've kind of planned it that they can afford to do this, and then they do it. I do think that people looking to make a new home would probably wait a while, because a lot of my clients invest, and like us, you know, we invest in the stock market. And recently I was listening to a good friend of mine talk about Bitcoins and
Yeah.
people investing in things like that. And I think people will pause, but the luxury you asked me a question about a very specific segment.
Luxury, you do
Yeah,
luxury homes.
I think the luxury client will still be okay. I don't know, and I'm sorry I'm saying this, but I'm not so sure about guys who are bringing in luxury products, because I think a lot of us and a lot of architects and designers will also redefine the meaning of luxury. Because, like, for me, luxury doesn't mean a big home. Like, I myself, for me, it doesn't mean a big home. It means a place where I can be myself, a place that gives me happiness. That for me is a luxury, right? A place that is beautifully designed, for me, it's luxury, which doesn't necessarily mean spending a lot of money.
Right.
Um, but I think a lot of people are going to, I've been listening to a lot of people talk. I think a lot of people are going to be speaking to, and looking at exploring the Indian market, because we've got some amazing product designers. We just have to skill up our production capabilities and our production quality.
Right.
But I think you just have to give it a little bit of time, even for important stuff. And we'll be back. I think we'll be back on our feet. But I think it's important for us in our fraternity to relook at things a little bit going forward. I think actually it's very important for humanity to relook at things going forward. But that's a whole different discussion. So,
Yeah.
you know.
But the good thing is that I was talking to another friend of mine that all the factories now in Europe have opened up. Uh, opened up. So slowly, I think things will be coming back to normal. We are back to production outside. Started getting calls from our clients who want kitchens, wardrobes, or whatever they're asking. So for the good thing is that those factories have opened up and people are getting back to the normalcy of life. So I completely agree. And also, before you, there were two other guests, Rudraksh and Zafar sir were there. So we also discussed this, and they also believe that it's a matter of some time and things will for sure go back to normal for luxury kind of,
Well,
So,
fingers crossed. You know, we hope so.
so as one thing which I'm very sure, and which I will ask you, like you are also a trendsetter, I would say, because I've been asking. No, it's a fact. I'll tell you the reason also. Not that I am here to compliment you. Uh, you have been believing in collaboration from the beginning. Now, this word of collaborations is getting a bigger space. Where people, I see a lot of webinars or talks going on that what is your ideology on collaboration, things like that. But you have been thinking, I think you have been quite, because I know you for long years, and we have discussed about collaborations a lot of
Yeah,
times. And
yeah.
what I like is that when you do an India design stand also, if somebody is collaborating with you, completely put their names on their stand, and and this is not something you're doing now, you've been doing for long years. And so what's your take on, can you hear
You're
me?
absolutely right. Yeah, I can. You're absolutely right. And I've always been big on collaborations, and that doesn't just mean architect and architect collaborations. It also means vendor collaborations, and I'm going to say something which maybe a little inappropriate, but okay. But let me start by saying something else actually. So I was very lucky and privileged. I applied for a job at Norman Foster during my college time, and I got it, and I ended up going there. And I worked at Norman Foster's. And while I was working at Norman Foster's, I was put on a project, which was the Boston Fine Arts Museum. So now the Boston Fine Arts Museum was done by IMP, and Norman Foster had to present his design for the extension of the Boston Fine Arts Museum to IMP, and had to take his approval before he could go forward, because it was a collaboration that they were working on. And I think that really set the ship sailing for me. When someone like Norman Foster has to present to another architect to figure it out what his way forward is, you know that there is no room for ego. There's enough room for hard work, and there's enough room for design to get the project done. When I moved back, you're absolutely right, and you may recall when I first set up my studio and my concept space.
Yes.
I think it was one of the first concept spaces ever, and I think we had collaborated with Soundsmith, Lutron, I'm forgetting. Yeah, I'm forgetting people's names, but they were almost like 8, 9, 10 people who we collaborated with in order to give a design experience, because we felt that is something that was more relatable to a client. And I'm talking about 10 years ago. 10 years ago, you were talking to a very different client than you're talking to today. Today, every client is very well traveled, very well read. Then there was still a lot of convincing, and you didn't have the visual power of what Pinterest is, right? And Instagram is. So I'm talking about 2010. So you had to physically put it out there.
Right.
And as some of my friends who also, busy typing away on this, will tell you, I do a lot of, because my passion is also carpentry and furniture manufacturing. So I love getting into projects where I'm not the architect and I'm not the designer, and I will quietly sit at the table and the designer will tell me, okay, but what do you think? And I was like, whatever you want, because really, and then the client, my friend or the designer has to tell me, Kohelika, chill, tell me what you think. And then we come together at different levels. So I think collaboration to me comes very easily, because I kind of go from all kind of levels of it, from an architectural phase to design to furniture. So, and I think it's a beautiful way to work, because again, I believe I'm a student, right? So you got to keep learning every day. You got to keep learning. And some of the best learning I have got is from my friends and my colleagues, and believe it or not, people who my clients may think are my competitors. But we have interesting conversations, and you get to learn a lot, and then you get to do some amazing work together.
Yeah, but I can, because it's my personal experience, that you're one of those people who know their roles. Like if somebody comes for your furniture or your artifacts, which are beautiful, okay, where you have to draw a line, and where your space is, and that's the best part. So I think we are very happy that you have shown.
CJ, the thing that I was going to say, which I don't know how appropriate it would be, is that I think everyone needs to identify their core, right, and what they're good at, and do that.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, which does not mean that you can't move across the arts. You're a fashion designer wants to become an interior designer wants to become an artist, a sculptor, that's fine. But I think, and you will agree with me on this, I think you find a lot of people trying to do everything,
Yes.
where and I think that's where, I think that's where you start blocking yourself out a little bit. And I think it's very important to go to specialists, to do what you want, to do what you need from a specialist. I think that's very important, because when I went to architecture school, and today you've got that same architecture, interior design, lighting design, they are a plethora. There's a whole list of things you could do today, which are very specific. So, and then you collaborate with those people to get the most beautiful result that you can.
Great, Kolika. I think it's a very good take for the audience to understand that they have to work on their specials and let's explore each other strengths, try to make the best of the project. So I think, Kolika, now it's a time to get back to some fun time because we had taken some really good inputs from you. So I prepared some, 5 or 6 questions of rapid fire, which you need to answer. Okay, and I know you're very blunt, so
Okay.
up to you. But, but the idea is that we all want to know about it. So also, friends, you can start pouring in your questions because we need to do it fast. Uh, Kolika, who's your lifeline?
My mom.
I heard other. Well, there is one more. Your
Yeah,
driver.
yeah, there is. Well, listen, I have a lot of lifelines. I'm very
No, no.
blessed. Okay?
Your
No,
immediate
sorry.
mom. I think is your driver Pushkar, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, fine.
I
Yes, Pushkar is
think
my
I,
lifeline.
I have done my Reiki, Kolika. I've done my Reiki. So, okay, your preference. You have to choose one. Dogs or humans.
Dogs any day.
I
Any day.
Another preference. Diet Pepsi or gin tonic.
Diet Pepsi. But by the way, I've given it up. So
What have
uh,
you given?
I've given up Diet Pepsi. So I'm very, very proud of myself. And all my friends who know me very well are very proud of me as well because I think I got to a point where for every gin and tonic and vodka tonic they were having, I was having a Diet Pepsi. But I've actually quit. I've quit having Diet Pepsi, which I think is a big
Wow.
achievement for me.
I was more worried when you said. I thought you said gin tonic. I was like, oh my god. I thought it is a good chance to get all the good gin bottles from you then. So
No, that I have.
no,
By the way, I have a lot of gin bottles because I haven't been drinking the gin. So I'm pretty
really
sorted. Yeah. I'm
nice.
not going to be paying the extra 70% or whatever it is. I'm a bit sorted with my alcohol.
Wow. So okay, rating in your liking of whatever I'm going to ask you. There are 6, 7 things. Whichever you like the most. Okay. First is food, friends, travel, design, dogs, driver Pushkar.
Okay, you got to repeat that
First,
to me.
food,
Yeah,
friends,
yeah.
travel, design, driver Pushkar, dogs.
So travel with friends,
No,
dogs.
friends is separate.
Okay, well, friends. Well, friends would be first. Travel would be second. My dogs would be third. Um, uh, Design would be fourth. I hope I have very few clients on this. And food would be next. And listen, this is really tough because they're all really essential things for me. So
Okay, honestly, you think I in life, but I've done
no, because
something
when I
good.
think about it, I need my driver Pushkar a lot more. So
Yeah, that
I'm not sure.
I was surprised that you're not using
I
his
have
name
a
because
feeling that
like,
I have a feeling that you called one of my friends up to get this information because
of course I had to do my homework. My homework. So, but you still haven't answered. You have to answer fast.
okay, well, friends, travel, driver Pushkar, my design, my dogs, food.
Wow. Now it's better.
Don't record this.
So I've got a comment on the chat that next time please ask please do the interview of driver Pushkar also. Who's Pushkar? So anyways, okay, last rapid fire before we start questions. So guys, whoever wants to ask any question now, please put it. Horse riding, swimmer, nationals, design, food, bartending, New York, travel. What's next, KK? You are a definite rock star for sure. So these are the reasons, one of the reasons why you are. What's next? Okay, also, I was reading one comment on your Insta. By the way, now you got active on Insta or your platforms that now, like you were talking to Prashant from Celebrate Life, that, okay, you have a new high. So, what's your new high?
No, no, I was saying I'm searching for my new high.
You're
Um,
searching.
I'm searching for my new high. Yeah, I've got a lot of time to think and um, I have to say I love what I do, right? And
All know that.
yeah, I love what I do. I don't, honestly, I don't know what's next, but I know there are many things that are coming up next. I just know it. I know it in my soul. I know it in my heart.
Name three.
Because
Just name us three. That's all. Or name two.
Well, I definitely want to. So for me, I'm going to get back to riding, to horse riding. I want to do something for animals, and I think a lot what this whole lockdown. I had to get out quite a bit during the lockdown, unfortunately, because my dad wasn't well, and I really want to do something for animals. And I'm talking to a friend of mine, a very good friend of mine, Singh, actually. And we're going to think of something amazing to do that we can help more and more animals. So I know this is probably not the ideal answer you're looking for, but that's something, definitely something that's up next in the near future. And I'm really excited because I worked on a bunch of furniture that I'm really excited to get into the workshop and to start making. So that's next. And I don't know, I mean, I'm a passionate person. I'll go where the passion finds me, or where I find the passion. So it's an endless, to me, there are endless possibilities.
Maybe a new small cocktail bar by K or by Kohelika.
You know,
You go
I wanted to do
up.
that, but then I realized I still have to pay my bills, and it's probably not the best time to open anything in terms of food or alcohol or restaurants.
I,
So yeah,
I,
I dropped that idea.
but I must say that's a wise idea. That's a real
I
wise
don't
idea.
mind being a bartender if you are running the place and
Yeah.
the profit and loss is your problem. I'm
Yeah.
happy to come on board as a bartender, and I promise you, you won't be disappointed.
I would. I think that the situation is such that if we can manage the bartending in our showroom, then opening
Yeah,
a new,
that's true. We could also do it there. We could also do it there. Yeah.
because that's better. It's more economical for us. Okay, so
Yes.
let's start the questionnaires. Uh, so there is one question which I see here with from Hitesh. How do you see Indian furniture design developing in 10 years?
Oh, I think a lot of my colleagues will give you the same answer. I think we have a lot of potential, and we need to harness it. And I really think this is the time to make that mark on the world. See, we've always believed we are all about made in India, right? And we're all about handcrafted furniture. My mother's company's done it for over 45 years. We did it since we started in 2006 when I started making furniture. And I truly believe in it. I have a lot of people who come and saying, but why is this expensive just because it's made in India? And I said, it's because we're using much superior wood. So I actually think there's a lot of scope out there to do product design, to do furniture design, to do industrial design, to sculpt, to paint. It really is. You see, at some point, you're going to have to stop talking about the negatives of 2020, and you're going to have to start talking about the positives of 2020. And I'm a very strong believer in that. You can't overlook what's happened. You can't overlook the disaster. You have to try and help as many people as you can. I truly say that. And you got to try and help as many animals as you can. But at some point, you got to turn the story around for yourself, and you got to start looking at the positives. And I think this is one of the positives that people will realize the potential of the Indian market and the potential of the Indian designer and the Indian product designer. Because we always stacked up with the West, and an Indian designer should take a less contractual amount than a Western designer. Why? There's no reason. I mean, if you're
Right.
comparing apples to apples in terms of education, output, qualification, projects, why? So I think a lot of that will change, and I'm excited about that. I'm excited about this because I'm one of the lucky few who already have my feet wet, because we've been doing made in India and we're doing handcrafted stuff, and we've always been pushing our own limits. So it's one of the plus and positives for me.
I think I completely agree with you on, and there's a lot to do. So in related to this, there's another question from Rudraksh, 42 Furniture design, formal education institutes in India. Your comments.
Sorry, I couldn't. Your voice was breaking.
Furniture design, formal education institutes in India. Your comments.
Well, I think Indian institutes in India. which a lot of them, unfortunately, a lot of the design, well, not unfortunately, but a lot of the design institutes in India are privatized now, I think need to start teaching better, need to start teaching, have better people teaching the plethora of things people can do under the head of design and arts and architecture, because there's a lot of potential out there. I mean, it's, I've been out, I'm not going to take names, but I've been asked to sit on the board of somebody who's opening a design institute. And I'm actually super excited about that. I did warn my friend who asked me who's doing this, that said, listen, I said, you know, I don't necessarily go with the flow. Sometimes I'm completely against the current. So, but I think design institutes need to start pushing their limits. And I think more and more people like us who are in the profession, like we had some of our best learnings where I studied, and I was so privileged because I ended up at Pratt and in New York. So I used to have amazing guest lecturers, and that was really part of a very key part of my education. It was not so much just the work I was doing in the studio, but about hearing people's stories. Because a story, you remember, there's a recall value of a story versus just doing a project, right? So the best teachers are also those who can teach you by telling you a story. So yeah, I mean, that's my reaction. I think more of us need to get, I really believe more of us need to get involved in improving the quality of what is taught by the design institutes in this country.
Great. Kohelika, in this situation, we need to close this in some time now, because maximum time slot where we have to finish this. But honestly, thank you very much for doing this, because I think that we really wanted to hear. I personally, but there are a lot of people who want to do in your story. So, on closing note, anything you want to tell people, something you think is very important in life? It's important to grow as a person, or kind of a motivating or inspiration thing we really believe in.
Learn to get out of your comfort zone. There is no excuse for hard work. And there's no alternative to hard work.
I hope this is not for
No, it's also a little bit for you, and it's also for me. Because you gotta put in the work.
I remember when you. Yeah.
You
Sorry,
do
I didn't
remember
get the
that
last
one.
one.
I said there's no alternative to hard work. You got to put in the hard work and never stop learning. The biggest problem is people shut themselves down. They think this is it. You know, we've done our formal education. Now we are an architect. We know everything. Or in anything. I'm not just talking about architecture. I'm talking about even life. You gotta stick on that. You know, you gotta stay on that train. You gotta keep going with it, and you gotta keep learning. So there really is. You just gotta put in the hours, and you have to be passionate about what you do. And passion means being frustrated and also loving it and enjoying the highs and lows of that passion. So it's not just, I'm passionate about this, but what does that mean? You can't, the word boredom cannot exist when you're passionate about something. So yeah, and I say that too, we take on a lot of interns. Not all of them are happy when they leave me, because as you know, I'm a pretty tough taskmaster, because I believe you're putting in the time, you must, you got to work hard for it. So yeah, that's what I leave you with, CJ.
Leave. Also, I just want to add, there is a very great book written by Mr. Kohli about the food. So name that book, Kohli, because
The
we are
Lucknow cookbook. Yeah, it's written. It's by my grandmother and my mom.
Grandmother and we have been recently in this lockdown. I think that's been a blessing to us, because we're making some amazing food recipes, and we really loved it. So thank you, Mrs. Kohli.
Thank you.
Once again, thank you, Kohelika. You are a rock star, and you will always be a rock star.